Hey, so I'm going to run through how you can sync your plays from Spotify to Notion. It's going to go to a single database called Play History, and it comes with a dashboard as a template that you can duplicate. That looks something like this, so you can see your most recent plays. Scrolling down, you get some charts with top artists, top songs. You can see what you were listening to this time a week or a month ago, and we've got some all-time charts here with top 3 songs, main artists, and albums. And if you go to the bottom, you'll just see the play history here. This is the database that powers everything. So how this is going to work is you're going to create a free make.com account or use one that you already have. And that's going to check Spotify and send the information to this table right here. And for the free account for make.com, you'll get about 900 songs that you can sync per month. All right, so to start, we'll go to music.xnota.com. This is where there's a tutorial, kind of what I'm going through now, but it's got more information about things you might want to copy paste and stuff like that, or you need to copy paste. So if we have a look here at the top here, we've got the premium version of this. So this is I shared this in the Notion subreddit, a version of this integration, which you can see here has a now playing widget. It's got full databases for songs, artists, and albums, and full stats. It's got some extra information, and it syncs basically constantly, like every few minutes it's syncing, unlimited sync. So check that out if you're interested. But then what we've got here is a light version that you could do yourself, make with the make.com account, like I mentioned. And kind of the steps we're going to go through are connecting to your Spotify and Notion account. We're going to go set up Notion's the API request to handle for Notion, and we're going to test that to make sure everything's working. Then we're going to set a schedule so it can run, and then just some tips on how to monitor. And that might sound like a lot, but it's not going to take too long because I've kind of got everything ready for you. All right, first up, we've got duplicate template. So we've got a link right here. What you can do is just click on that, go up to the top right, and click duplicate. This would be similar to any you've done before. I'm going to add it to my private section in my Notion account. So click add there. And I assume it will tell me in a second. Maybe it won't. Let's have a look. Search, music light. Aha, it's this one here. Okay, so it's here. That part is done. So as you can see, it's all empty for now because we just don't have any data yet. So now let's go to make.com. Now, if you don't have an account, you'll need to make one. I've already got one. So just on the top right here, I guess it would be go to get started free. I'm just going to click login instead. And I think I'm already logged in. Can be a little slow on the first load. All right. So let's go to scenarios on the left and go up to the top right and click make new scenario. I might just increase sizes, make sure it's a bit easier to see. All right, so first we need to set up a trigger or something that's going to initiate the thing. So we're going to go to search for Spotify and I'm going to type recent. So in the search, type Spotify recent, and you'll see this one comes up here. Spotify watch recently played tracks. What this is essentially Spotify offers the last 50 played tracks for any Spotify account. Well, the ones you have access to, which is usually just your own. So we're going to click that. And what the watch means is that make is just going to periodically check. Going to keep an eye on it, so to speak. So first up, we need to connect our Spotify account, as this mentions. You could type a name for that here, but I'm just going to leave that as the default. So as you notice, there was a little error there, but it went away. So, all right, so allow Spotify connect to make, so you can read that if you want, but essentially that's just making sure, Spotify making sure that you're giving access to someone that you want to give access to. And now we see here you've got a limit of 2. That's how many songs, or how many plays rather, it's going to pull in, which is just an important distinction, by the way. We are pulling in plays, which each play represents a song, but you can have the same, you can play the song over and over again. If you play it 10 times in a row, the same one will come through 10 times. So let's just change this to 1, because for testing purposes, it helps to just pull in one at a time so you're not using up your quota in Make. And when choosing where to start, I would go with all, which I think means go back to the start. So the 50 songs right now will start from the oldest one of those 50. So I'll just select all. And I guess that's the first step done. So we're done there. So we're up to part 2, connect to Notion. I haven't figured out my shortcuts in the Arc browser. Add another module. This time we want to go Notion. And you can see there's quite a few, such as create a page and also create a database item, but we actually want the API. So I'm going to search Notion API and we're going to select make an API call. And that's because the API call, while it's a little more complicated to set up, will allow us to set a cover image and a page icon all in the one request, which means we only use that one operation, which means more songs that we can sync. And don't worry if you've never used an API before, I'll go through all this. So let's see, creating a connection type, we're going to go public. This is essentially, it's kind of some internal lingo. I don't know why they're showing that, but we'll just go with Notion public. And what this is going to use is Make's own connections. We don't have to do anything ourselves, I believe. Let's wait a moment. Here we go. So Make is requesting access to, and this is my workspace. So you just want to make sure if you have access to multiple workspaces, just on the top right, make sure it's the correct workspace. Otherwise you can click up there and change that. And now we can select which one we want to give access to, and we want to give access to the template we just created. So I'm going to click here for Music Lite, and so this is not a database itself, this is the dashboard, the parent dashboard, and it's just easy to give access to that because otherwise you'd also have to give access to, there's a helper database as well, so it's just easier to give access to the full dashboard, which will include the database inside. So I'm going to select allow access. And let's see, hopefully this works out. Done. All right, so let me just figure out my shortcuts. I still don't know my shortcuts. So let's go back here and we're going to have some things basically to copy and paste. So if we scroll down the list here, the steps I mean, here. So this is probably the section you want to come and copy paste from. So part 3, we've got the URL here. Just leave that open. So URL, this is going to say we want to work with pages. We're going to update the Notion version. That's the API version specifically. I don't know why they keep on the old one there, maybe for, I don't know, I suppose could be many reasons, I suppose. Don't want to break old people's existing items, and we're going to specify a post. Post essentially means create a new thing. In this case, create a new page. And let's go back and see what else we have. I think that's that. Okay, everything else should be good except the big one, which is if you expand this toggle, we need to copy all this. So I'm going to select copy there. And I am going to go down and push paste. And we have a bunch of stuff here. And there's only 2 things we need to do in here. But the first thing we should do is just check that these are green here. So where it says, for example, track album images, and there's a few more down there. Just make sure that they're green, because if they appear black, then I think it's because there's a problem. So what these kind of assume is, this is saying, for example here, for the cover image, we're going to get the image for the album, the first image for the album, and from the previous step, from the watch Spotify step, and save that there. Now it uses an ID, this number here is called 1, and what that represents is Spotify here. This is the first step in our scenario. Now if you played around before we got started and you had to delete one or did something else and that's not ID number 1 anymore, then you're going to have to go through and update all those, although it might be easier to paste it into another application and just change all the 1 dots to 2 dots or whatever the number under Spotify is. But if you haven't done any of that, you can just paste it in and it should be green and it should work. Alternatively, if it's a different number, it might be easier just to delete the scenario and start again. All right, so there's 2 things we need to do here. One is get the play history database ID. So to get that, we're going to go back we go to the template we duplicated. So this is important to go to the one you duplicated and not try to go to the one on xnode.music.com. So we're going to go down the bottom, go to our play history database, and this is the database, the table we want. And this is fun because I'm going to right click and go copy link here. Depending if you're using an app, you probably want to go up to the menu here and go copy link. What this is going to do is give you the full link. We don't actually want the whole thing, but let's just copy that anyway. Come in here and we just want the ID. So I'm going to paste it here and get rid of everything up until your workspace name and the slash. So get rid of the slash. Then you're left with a bunch of numbers. Then find the question mark and a V. Get rid of that. And that's what you are left with. Just double check that because it's important that that's right. It'll give an error later if not, and you can always fix it later. And then scroll down to the bottom and didn't get done. Here we go. Then we have another one here, and this is a page inside a different database we have, which is a helper database. So to get that, go back to the template you duplicated, scroll down. I'm just going to click that shortcut. And it's a music stats database. So this is getting some statistics from a database. It's kind of use some tricks. So if you want more information there, stay around after we go get everything set up, and I'll go through how some of this works. And so what we want is the ID of this page here. So I'm going to click open. I'll go up here and click copy link. We'll do kind of the same thing. I'm going to paste it here. And this time we're going to go up until where it says play history in the hyphen or dash, just remove that. And then remove again question mark and everything after that. And then we're left with the page ID, and that's going to set a relation. And I believe that's it. So I'm going to click OK. And now we can do a test run. So we specified this is going to attempt to do 1. So now let's click run once and see how it goes. That looks all good. If there was a problem, it would be red, I think, around here, but it is looking good. So the one here, not when I hover, but the one there represents one operation. So it checks Spotify, and this one here represents this one here represents another one operation. In this case, it sent one page to Notion. So what that should do is if we go into our database, we go back here to our template, look at that, we got Apatet there. And if we go into our actual database, play history, we should see a lot of information now. And it's worth doing a quick check just to make sure everything is there. So I'm going to go to this all props view, which has got a bit of extra stuff in it. Again, if you're interested, I'll go through them at the end. So let's see what we've got. Artists, we've got this timestamp, got a played out date, we've got some time, some length, album information, release date, album artists. Everything looks filled in so far. Main artist name, some album links. That's looking all good. We've got one play count of 1. One thing to just note here, I'm going to specify in case you are looking through this, is, and there's a hint here, that these play counts are the play counts at the time that the song was played. Meaning if you play this song 5 times, this play here is going to stay as 1, and the next one will be 2, and the next one will be 3, 4, and 5. That's just to do with how the automations work. If you've got like the premium version where I've got 4 separate databases, this is not a thing. This is more just, you need to do it in this light version just as a workaround, because we're just working with a single database. And the reason we're working with a single database is just, you don't, on the free accounts, on like Make and such, you just don't get the quota to be able to send all these requests. You would use your operations up too quickly. Okay, so this seems like it's working. Next up, we need to schedule it. By the way, if you came across any problems in those last steps, the going to music.xnode.com, those will give you, there's some tips and stuff like that in case you come across some errors in that process, but hopefully it all works first time. So now we need to set a schedule. So I'm going to click down here on every 15 minutes, not on the toggle, but just on the text. which is a little different. And this requires a little thought on your behalf, because it's when you want to do the scheduling depends on how you listen to Spotify. And don't worry about getting it perfect. It doesn't really matter. You can, this is a new thing anyway, right? You're currently not syncing Spotify, and now you're syncing. So if you don't get it right the first time, that's okay. It's very easy to come in and adjust it. So I'll just go back to here because I have some tips here. So there's two main things to think about. One is that Spotify only remembers the last 50 plays for you. So if you checked once a day and you played 70 songs, then you would probably miss the first 20. So if you're checking every 24 hours, but you play 70 songs, Spotify only remembers the 50. So once Make checks, the next time it checks, it's not going to see the 70. It's only going to see 50 in the most recent 50. So that's one constraint we have. And the other is your operation limit. So you get 1,000 operations on Make free account. And an operation includes the checks to Spotify, so how frequently it checks, that counts towards your operations. And additionally, every song counts as an operation. So for example, you can even see that here if I was to change that to do 2. So you can see before we have 1 and a 1. If I run this now, we'll see 1 again because that only counts as 1 check, but it sent 2 requests to Notion, 2 API calls to Notion, so that counted 2. So that 1, when I hit run just then, that counted as 3 operations. And we can just, because we're looking, let's just have a look and see everything got there. Yep, got all our data there. Nice. So back to the schedule. Actually, back to this. So I've got an example here about how you can calculate things, so you can spend some time thinking about that and have a read of this if you want, but generally you just don't want to overschedule. If you checked every 15 minutes, I believe it would use up 100 of your operations a day, and using up 100 would mean even if you didn't play any songs, your operations would be done in about 10 or 12 days. So it's not feasible to check every 15 minutes. But at the same time, as I said before, if you check only once a day, that might not be enough depending on how much you listen to Spotify. And depends when you listen to Spotify. You might listen to it at work, or the opposite, only when you're not at work. So I've got an example down here, a bit of a starting point, I suppose. So let's say if we take an average of 3 minutes per song, which may be different for different people, but that's 150 minutes to play 50 songs, and 50 is that key number. So that's 2.5 hours. So my kind of thinking is, if I listen to Spotify during a 9 to 5 job, then you might want to check at 9, 11:30, 2, and 4:30. And then, back when it checks the next day at 9, that'll get, if you listen to 20 more songs, that'll come up in the next check the next day. And then maybe sometimes listen on the weekends. So maybe you want like 1 check on Saturday and 1 check on Sunday. And so this would come to essentially 100 operations per month just in checking Spotify, and that leaves you about 900 plays to sync that you can sync. So just tweak that based on how you think it would work for you, and you can adjust it again like in the future. You don't have to get it right the first time. So let's go back to Make. And so I'm going to set that every 150 minutes, as we said. Now I'm going to go add an item. An item is kind of just a rule for the schedule. And so we're going to say, if we do 9 a.m., I think that will work. We're going 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Yep, that looks good. Every 150 minutes, it's going to check, and we're going to do that, not all. I'm just going to select that and then deselect that. So this is just our rule, our item for weekdays. And just a note, Make will check at 9 exactly. It checks, it doesn't start at 9, but only waits then 150 minutes. It starts immediately on that. So this will check at 9 and it will check at 4:30. I tested it where I did from 9 to 10 with 1 hour, and it did both 9 and 10. So this will check the number of times you expect, both at 9, every 2.5 in between, and on 4:30. And just select all for months. So that's the weekdays done. And now we're going to click another add item, and we're going to just do, let's say 3 p.m. It probably doesn't really matter. I guess you kind of want to put it in the middle of, if you might listen to 50 songs on Saturday and 50 on Sunday, it probably doesn't really matter when you do it. If Friday was 4:30, then maybe you want it near the end of the day. So it kind of depends. Again, don't worry too much about it. You can you can tweak it later. So we'll just set 3 p.m. and 3 p.m. and that should mean it just checks once and then doesn't check again. We're going to go down and select Saturday and Sunday and months all again. And that is it. It's asking if we want to activate it. So yes, we set the schedule, but we haven't turned it on yet. So I'm going to click activate. It's going to save something about saving changes, and I've got a light in front so I can't actually see where it is. There it is, save. And that should be it. We should be working. Just for interest, I'm going to import a bunch more right now. So if you don't want to wait, you can certainly do a bunch. Actually, sorry, we missed one bit there. Just set that back to 50. That's important. And then I'm going to have to look under. There we go. Hit save again. So now we've got 50. So what I might do is let's just run once again. Import everything. Let's have a look. You can see it go through now. So we're up to 5, 6. It's interesting. Sometimes you'll see they take a bit longer. And if we go back to our play history, you should see them coming through. Here they go. If we go back to our dashboard, you can see them coming through here as well. So if you're on a free account with Notion, you won't have charts, or you will have one chart, but you might not want to use it towards this. So these will probably be empty, or all will be empty except one. So you might just want to delete those. But you can access this, and you can access this here. You'll be able to see that information. Awesome, we're all done. So there's one other thing you might want to take note of, and this is also in the written tutorial, is how to monitor things. So let's say it's been going for a week or so, you just might want to check how things are going. So you've got two things. One, if you go into your organization page, you can see your unused operations for the month. So for example, I've got 831 here, and my usage is going to reset on January the 1st. So that can kind of give you an idea of how you're progressing overall. And then if you go to scenarios here, choose your scenario that you just created and go to history. Then you can see how things have been going. You can see this is the sync that I just did manually then. That's probably what the play button represents, I would guess. Not quite sure. And so you can see how things are going. There could be errors in here. If they'll be shown here if you've had any errors, although I think you'll get an email as well. And one thing to note is that, for example, if you see, let's say 51 here a few times, that 51 will mean that one of them is the checking of Spotify, and then the 50 is all the plays. And so you've basically maxed out. So it's possible and likely that there have been more plays you've missed. So if you're seeing 51 kind of frequently, that means maybe you have a look into the timing and what days of the week, or just kind of tweak it a little bit so to check a bit more frequently, because you might be missing songs there. And of course, you can always upgrade yourself. If you're running out, you can upgrade and get a paid account on this. You could get a paid Zapier account, or pay for the Xnode Premium. That'll give you unlimited sync and very fast sync as well. So I believe that brings us to the end there. So that's all done. Right now, I'll just go through a little more information about how these things work. We go to the play history database. This is the main one. And I'll go through the old props briefly. So we've got a playdat timestamp. That is the time in milliseconds at which you played the song. And the reason we have that is just that the playdat date here is, in Notion, is only accurate to the only accurate to the minute. And so, for example, if you've got like an intro song that's 20 seconds long, then you might have two songs that started playing at 10:49, and it wouldn't quite know which one. So that's why we have that there. And we have in here also a bunch of little helpers, like this played-out one here is just a short version. So if you want to display it somewhere, instead of displaying the whole date, you can display a kind of cleaner, shorter version like that. That's what that's there for. And then we have some lengths. Most of these things, if you see 2, it's that Spotify provides the data in this form, in this case in milliseconds, but we don't really want to display it like that. So we have the data there, but then we've got a formula to calculate the length from that. So you can inspect that if you want. You just have to like click on here and you can see how the formula works. We have album release date. That's all fairly straightforward. Album artists, song ID here, and there's IDs for other things as well. These are Spotify's IDs, and these are useful for using to compare, like to determine, is this the same song? So you can kind of use the song name, although there's probably a lot of songs called, like for example here, Taste. There's probably a lot of songs called Taste. So you could also use this song name and the artist names, but it's getting a bit like, it's just simpler to use the song ID, because the song ID can also be used for other things as well. You can use it to create links that maybe you don't already have here and stuff like that. It's useful to have that data here. We go to URL, and the song link is just a more convenient URL. We've got all artist IDs here, the main artist ID, and the reason we've got a main artist here is that because in this version, the light version we're creating ourselves here, we don't have an artist database like in Xnode Premium we do. So in this case, we decided against trying to create a long number of artists, separate ones, because some songs have, I've seen at least 4 before, like here alone, there's a number in that one there. So instead of creating those, I just simplify it and just got main artist. So the statistics and stuff that you can get are all to do with just the main artist. Then we have some more information there, album ID as well, same thing with the song ID, with a full song name, which is used in charts. And then probably the more interesting part here is a relation. And this is, as you can see, they have the same relation to, well, every player has the same relation. And the useful part of that is that we can then use that relation. If we point to this page and we can access this page, the page is going to have its own relation the other way around to every single play we have. And because of that, we can do things like use formulas and roll-ups to get information about all those, because we can't do that generally in a database. It's one of the limitations in Notion databases that a lot of people have come across, is you can't, like in here, you can't add a formula that gets the average for all the rows. You can't get information kind of across rows. You can only get it from in the one row. That's how formulas work. But there are workarounds like relations. So that's what that is there for. And as I mentioned earlier, the song count, the song play count, the main artist play count, and the album play count are at the time of the play. So generally you want to look for the most recent one to get that, and is used in the other database a bit. So I will just go to that then. So that's that database. And then we have the music stats one. So this database can get a bit slow when you have thousands. I have tested it in thousands. And so I've kind of separated it into different views. So there are 4 pages here, but each one has its own view, and each view only displays the properties relevant. And I think that helps the performance a little bit. So we have one page here called Play History, one called Top Songs, Top Made Artists, and so on. So this one here, this is where the relations, as you can see, to all the different plays. And just as a reminder, these aren't songs, these are plays of songs. So you'll see the same one multiple times in there, probably. Here I'm seeing Wildflower in caps twice. So this is the magic property here. If we can reference this property here, we can suddenly access everything, which is awesome. And so let me think. Actually, let's go back. So now that we've seen that, I should show you the automations. So if we go to Play History, go up here, we've got these automations. There's 2 here that kind of do the same thing. One, this is when you add the relation, which you shouldn't really be needed, but I came across it a few times in testing. So this adds, if we just go over that Play History, that reacts if you add that separately, but usually you shouldn't. If it's coming from make, it shouldn't be like. So this will be the main one here, which is when a page is added. So these are for doing these song play counts, and this is why they only are the play counts at the time of creation, is because we can't go and update those later so easily. At least I don't think natively in Notion we can't. So we've got when page is added. We're starting off with a confusing thing here. What this essentially does is add the same relation that's already there. You already see the play history relation because we set that in make, but it adds it the other way around. It goes to the, where is it here? Yeah, it goes to the play history page in the music stats database, and it adds this page that was just created there. Now, it should already be there, this is a bit confusing. It should already be there. However, I came across some instances where it seemed to not be registering in these automations. And so just for safety, I kind of put it there. And I think, but this is just a hunch, I think it works a little better if you add it there as well. It could be a waste of a step, I'm not sure. We'll see, but I'm more comfortable. It doesn't cause it any problems, so I'll just leave it there for now. And so we're going to count the song plays here. So this is how we get the song plays. First, we just got a if statement just to check if it's empty, just to do 0. And then this next one is the interesting one here. So what we're doing is referencing the trigger page. So hey, this was the page that was just created that references this was the play that was just added to the play history database. Go to the relation the relation property, get the first one in there. There's only ever going to be one, but you need to do that anyway because it's a list. You just need to tell it which one in the list to get, even if there's only one, because it's not super smart. And then we're going to access the play history property. That was the one we saw in the music stats database that has the list of everything. So this row here, this line here, essentially is giving you access to the full play history to your full play history. Now what we're going to do is filter. So through that whole list, and what a filter does is it excludes everything in a list that doesn't meet these requirements. And the ones we do want to be included are the ones where the song ID matches the song ID that we just added. So if it's got the same song ID, it's the same song, and that means we can count that. And so that's going to end up with a list of plays, all your plays that you've ever done in Notion at least. And then we just call length on that to get the length. So if there's 3 plays, the filter will end up getting rid of everything except 3, and then .length will just mean 3. So that count would be 3 then. So the song count would be 3. Okay. And then we just do the same for main artist play count and album play count. So these are creating variables for them. And then down below, we set the play counts to those variable values. And that gives us the play counts. And like I said, they're not updated. And that's just because there's just a limitation in Notion. So that's how the automations work. And now we can use that data from the automations. If we go over to music stats, now let's go to top songs. Now, another little bit of confusing references, I guess, here is that this is another property here that has a reference to the other page over here. So this is kind of like a reference within a database. It's the top songs page in this database is referencing the play history page in this database. And the reason is just to get to that list of pages, because this list of pages here, this is only got any data in it for this one page. If you remember, we only added it for that page when we're in the other database. So this gives us access to that. And then we have here top song plays. So how do we get the top song plays? This is essentially this part here gets the full list of plays. And then we're going to sort by play count. So in order with the play count we generated inside the automation, we're going to remove everything that isn't more than that is basically everything that's 0, which I don't think there usually is 0s, but in some of my testing it came across, so I've added it there. And then we're going to reverse that because sorting by default goes low to high, so this is going to give us high to low, so it's going to give us the top song plays down to the lowest. And of course, the one thing to remember here is that these are the plays, and if, for example, you've only listened to 5 songs, and 4 of them you listen to once, and 1 of them you listen to 10 times, then this list is going to be that song number 5, it's going to have a play count of 10, and then there's also going to be song number 5, play count of 9, and then song number 5, play count of 8, and so on, all down to the bottom, and then eventually at the bottom we go, song number 1 has a play count of 1, song number 2 has a play count of 1, and stuff like that, because this is a list of plays, not a list of songs yet. And so that's kind of how that's going to work. And that's important because it's how these work here. To get the top song, you just have to get the first one because that's always the song and it's always got the top value. So you don't need to do anything special there. Then if you want song 2, essentially what we do, and don't worry about this error, it's actually not an error from what I can tell, it doesn't break anything. So what we do is we go through that list of top songs and we find the first one that has a different song ID to the song 1 that we just found, the number 1 song. Because if it's a different one, then it's because all the plays will be in order, that'll be the next number 1 song. And then we do the same for song 3. The formatting is a bit different here. I made it a bit easier to extend. So if you wanted to do the same for top 5 up to top 5 or even up to top 10, you could extend that. You just have to keep adding the properties as you go, adding here like comma, then top song 3, dot song ID, and so on, if you wanted to do that. But it does the same thing here. So that wasn't too hard. It's probably a bit to wrap your head around if you haven't done this stuff before. And top main artists and top albums are the same with just one little twist, which is you'll see here top main artist 1 and top main artist 1 name. And this is because there's a little quirk here where essentially, let me click on this. So what you find is we actually want the artist name in this case, or the main artist name. We don't want the page name because the page name is the song. So what you would think you could do is do like main artist name, and even though it detected that that's a relevant property, as you can see, it doesn't display anything. And I'm not 100% certain why, but if I was to have a guess, it would be that if you click this, you can see it says it's detecting this as a block, but maybe it doesn't know that it's a specific page block in a specific database or a specific, but it's a block that belongs to a specific database and it's a page. So it seems that the code, the system that detects stuff like what properties are relevant, it seems to know that, but maybe whatever then evaluates it, the property value doesn't seem to know that. So it's a little bit of a pain. So essentially, I think it doesn't know that that property belongs on there. But what we can do instead is a workaround here is we do the same thing, get that full list of plays, and then we find the first one. Well, basically, we're trying to find the actual page that was from that the one from here. This page that's listed in here. We go and try to find current.id, hey, look through each page, look at its ID, and does it equal the same one as the top main artist one? And find that first one, and then get that main artist name, and that works. It seems to know that the type of page there. And then we repeat that for 2 and 3, and also for top albums. And that's how that all works. All right, so there's just one more thing I'll go through is all the stats here. So they work a little different. So last week works, and charts have been really cool for this. I've found that charts allow you, because even though we've got one database, charts allow you to kind of get summarized information. As I've mentioned before, Notion databases, one limitation is generally you're very limited in how much information you can get about the rows on the whole, like comparing the rows and totals and things like that. But charts let you do that a little bit. So for example, here we've got on the y-axis what to show. I chose full song name in this case. And then on the x-axis, what to show is the count. So what it does is kind of squashes that. Instead of just showing one row for, like we've got here, Aperture by Rosé and Bruno Mars, instead of showing that multiple times, it kind of squashes those and says, hey, I found that twice, so I'm going to include that twice as a count of 2. And then you can sort by high to low, omit 0 values, and you're done. It's awesome. So that's kind of a cool way to show summarized information. It is a bit limited, and what we have here to get last week, we've just got a filter on, so the played out date is in the past week. But there's one downside of the charts is that you can't set a maximum number of values to show. Hopefully Notion adds that in the future. I can't imagine that's too difficult to do. But that problem is, if you've played a ton of different songs in 1 week, this will get very busy, and it's not even much clearer when you open as a full page. It doesn't get much better. So that's one downside of this, but there's no other way to do that at the moment. So that's good for now. And then we have top artists. So top artists and albums kind of work the same way as well. This day in history is not displaying just because we don't have that information yet. That'll come over time as you add to it. Then we have these, which come from the that stats database that we had before. And this is why, as you can see, we've got 3 here. It's like this is the stats database, and it's showing 3 pages here. And this is the reason why I added the stats database like that, is as separate rows and stuff like that, is because it gives people who are on free account some data here, whereas otherwise you might not have that. And so how that works is it's just showing all the pages that start with top, so it's excluding the play history one. And these actually all show all properties, but because the top songs page in the stats database only has, it's got empty values for all the properties that are related to main artists and top albums, they don't appear. So it's kind of a neat little trick just to show those that top information. And then down here we have the all-time, and those are all-time values, of course. And here we have all-time top songs, top main artists and stuff. And this is a little different. This one actually uses, if you have a look here, still got full song name, but it uses the song play count that we generated with the automations. And the reason it does that, we could do it the same way as before, but using this different count, the other one was Notion counting itself. This one is us counting with an automation. So it's a little different. But this one, what this gives us is you can add a filter. And this is not a good example. So let me just go to Music Lite, and I have one with test data. I think this one will be better. As you can see, here's an example where it gets a bit busy. You can't see, for example, this one in the middle here. Like, what's that? It's not showing me. Oh, here we go. No, I can barely see it. There we go, birds of a feather. So you can't even see it on the left there. You have to zoom in. This is one little issue with charts. But if you go down to these ones here, so what you can do is add a filter. And if you do, let's see, we're in songs, so by song count. If we do greater than equal to, let's have a look, 4, let's say 4. And we have a much easier to read chart. And of course, over time, that'll increase, your song counts will increase, so you'll have to increase that with it, but it's probably not that often, right? Just whenever you happen to look at the chart, if it's a little busy, just increase that value. And then you can do that for both of those. And then that should look good. So the charts, and there's a little more information here about play counts and charts. So that's it. I hope this works first time for everyone. If it doesn't, give me a message in wherever you happen to be in the comments section of wherever you're reading this, or if there is, my contact details are at the bottom in this page down here. So just reach out if you have any issues. Oh yeah, I'll add that after. Enjoy.